Hey there. You might be asking yourself, why is this guy sabotaging any hope of a future sex life you might have by dressing like a Jedi in the middle of the desert? Well, AI made me do this. AI drove me to this point. You see, I'm out here trying to take a self-portrait beyond my wildest imagination. I want to create this epic scene based on the idea of wandering Jedi that takes place in the years during the Great Jedi Purge, after the Jedi Order has been demolished and the few remaining Force users that might exist in the galaxy are on the run. So I wanted to create sort of like a visual story based around that concept. I did this already once before in Iceland, and here I am now in Joshua Tree in California to do the same thing. And honestly, it's not really a fair fight because the AI has access to hundreds of years of art history and inspiration. Every artist, designer, photographer, cinematographer, director, visionary who's ever existed is at the fingertips of the machine. If you've not been living under a rock in the last couple of months, then you've known that AI has kind of taken over the discussions and the emotions of the photography community. Like all disruptive technologies, it creates a lot of divisiveness in the community. If the AI is doing all the work and you're just typing, then is it really special? But then it begs the question, is art a matter of difficulty or creativity and ideas? Sometimes you go to like an art fair and somebody tapes a banana to the wall and calls it art, as ridiculous as that sounds. But then it gets like the entire crowd in an uproar and people start arguing about it. And art really is whatever you can get away with. And for me personally right now, I just don't see the AI as art yet. Maybe that'll change because it's missing that human element to it. And that's what I want to recreate here. I want to do the best stamp portrait I can make. So with that being said, yeah, let's go rage against that machine. It is fucking cold out here. It's going to be 3 shots total. The first one is I'm going to be meditating like a Jedi should, reflecting on the Force under the tree. I feel a disturbance and I get up. I'm alarmed. And then finally, a climactic battle with stormtroopers, and the sun is just over my left shoulder. I don't have much time to shoot this, so I'm going to be kind of in a rush. The first shot, I'll probably be standing like more or less right here. I'm going to use a giant umbrella as a fill light. The sun's going to be my backlight. And for the one in the tree, I might use a beauty dish to kind of mimic like the sun kind of like scraping me a little bit. So the sun is actually still backlighting me, but I'm getting some light in front of me. And I really don't have much time, and it's fucking cold out here, so I gotta get shooting. All right, so over here we've got the Fuji with the 80 beauty dish over there. Very simple setup. Shouldn't take more than a couple minutes. Still got plenty of time before twilight. Gotta move on, so let's go. Okay, so this one is a little bit more natural than the previous one because the beauty dish is mimicking the sun, which is over there. It's a little bit of a harder source. I do have the diffusion on just to make it a little bit more flattering. Now the sun is backlighting me, and it's just meant to cheat a little bit so that it looks like the sun is actually hitting me, because otherwise I would just be completely backlit and lost in the scene. So yeah, a little deception can go a long way. All right, so right now we are testing the lighting setup for the final shot. I'm gonna stand, I think it was right here. It's over here, right? Where was I supposed to stand? All right, so we are now testing the lighting setup for the final shot. Whoops, you didn't see that. The main light is gonna be our beauty dish, which is gonna emulate some moonlight, some practical effects, because there's gonna be a battle going on behind me. I'm gonna add those elements in later in post. And the Astera tubes are going to be my lightsaber, which is going to be blue. We're going to balance it with the soft ambient light that we have out here right now, that the sun is behind us and behind this rock over here. And I'm out of breath. It's fucking cold still. It's even colder, so excuse my impatience, but it's otherwise pretty simple. Let's get shooting. Project. All right, so we're back in the studio now, and we're going to go over some of the post-production and cover my best attempts to recreate these images using Mid. I am not an expert by any means on writing prompts. I'm still kind of learning as I. So if anyone out there is better at it than me and wants to give these a shot, by all means, I'm very curious to see. But I'm currently using Midjourney mostly as a storyboarding, mood board kind of tool. I wouldn't really use it for any actual work just yet, but yeah, let's see how good we can get it, and let's take a look at these images. So here's more or less where we started. This is the raw file, and you can see here on the left of the image, we've got the beauty dish that I used to emulate sun. The sun was setting like around here behind these rocks, and I just kind of used this beauty dish to create some wrap around my face and keep it motivated by the sun to make it look like it was lit by the sun. I think it came out pretty well. I think it's pretty natural. If this wasn't here, you probably wouldn't be the wiser. And the key to doing this correctly is mixing the right amount of ratio between ambient light and flash fill. So I did bump up the ambient exposure quite a bit to create a lot of fill in the shadows, so it wasn't too sourcey, especially because the light is like right next to me, so it would be kind of obvious otherwise. So I took another plate here without the light, and that was just to paint the light. Let's go into Photoshop. So this is the final image that you've already seen, and this is where we started. And as you can see, there's a ton of layers here, 3D elements that I got from Turbo Squid, Pixel Squid, I forget the name. And working with these elements in Photoshop can be very taxing on your system. So I wasn't able to record this, like the process. So this isn't going to be like an in-depth Photoshop tutorial because that would take forever. And I did try to record the screen while I was editing, but it just kept crashing my system. Even with this M1, working with these 3D assets can be quite taxing. Anyway, first thing we're going to do is replace this sky and make it something more dramatic, something much warmer, closer to the tone that I was going for. I did cheat. I used Photoshop's AI tool to replace the sky. Normally I do this manually, but I was feeling pretty lazy, and I said, why the hell not? Let Photoshop do its thing. Normally when it uses it, it is hit but this time it got it right away. I don't know if it's gotten a lot better, but I felt no need to make any adjustments to the mask. And if you're wondering, the sky that I used is from my own personal sky collection, which I do have for sale. Not so subtle hint there. And the next thing we're going to do is start adding our 3D elements. And for this, we are adding Slave 1, which is Boba Fett. And as you can see, it is very sharp and just kind of looks out of place there. So with a mixture of lighting and some other effects, we're going to make it blend a little more into the scene. And the first thing we did was blur it. If I can, oops. Get these effects back in. And you can see we blurred it to give it a sense of motion. And of course, it's also very far away, so it wouldn't be as sharp or contrasty. So we got to fix that. Add some atmosphere, mess around with the lighting. And there you go, from far away. And we're going to add more effects to layer on as it goes along, but this is just our starting point. And we did the same thing with some TIE fighters. More TIE fighters here. And another one. There we go. Those are our elements. This one was pretty basic. It's the easiest one that I worked on from this series. And then everything else is just a matter of toning, working on the lighting, working on the effects, just kind of layering everything to build the illusion. And do that using a variety of exposure tools, solid color layers, blend modes, to create light effects, to create direction to the light, to kind of just like sell the effect of light coming from the left side of the image where the sun is setting, where my beauty dish is set. And yeah, just adding a vignette here. Here I added some coolness to the shadows a little bit. And I believe in the final image, I also masked some of it out, but that's not important right now. Anyway, here we add some haze to the foreground to make it look like there's dust kicking up, more light effects, some more haze in the background to obscure the elements a little bit more. And there you have it. That is our final image, before, after. Pretty simple stuff. And now we go on to the actual complicated ones. And here we are, upping the difficulty once again. And for this image, actually, I don't think I saved the PSB for this one, so unfortunately, I don't have a full breakdown. But as you can see here, this was lit with a massive umbrella that I just had camera left. The sun is setting behind me, so this was acting more as a fill light. This one I cheated a little bit because I wanted to create more of a separation of myself from the background. So I increased the power on the ratio of the flash. So it's not the most naturally lit scene because this would be less directional on my face and just more light bouncing from the sand and the trees and stuff and just kind of filling in the shadows. But I cheated a little bit for a stylistic effect. Anyway, here is our final image. I don't have the PSB saved for this. I don't know what happened to it, but I added, obviously, all these elements into it. And I did the same thing, just on a larger scale. Added these 3D elements in post, and then use a variety of blending modes, color grading, light leaks, brushes to add dust and fog and haze, all to just kind of like blend the elements together and just kind of sell the effect and try to make it look as realistic as possible while still giving it like somewhat of a fantasy look to it, I guess. And yeah, there's the second image. And then this one was the most complicated one, a real pain in the ass, took forever to do, not gonna lie. So let's just let's go where we this is the original image one, and by the way, not shown here, I don't believe. There it is. But I actually lit these trees. So this right here, this tree right here, was actually me lit with that same beauty dish. I was just off screen, lighting the Joshua tree again, motivated by the elements that I'm going to add in later. Presumably, you know, there would be lasers, there would be fires. It's a battle, so it would illuminate the area. So I took a little creative liberty there and just created some stylistic effects on the trees, which is something I do in my architecture work all the time. And as you can see, trees are lit there. Got rid of some of the blue cast from the Astera tubes there. And there I am, minus the beauty dish. And the first thing we're going to do, replace the sky to something much cooler. And again, same thing. I used Photoshop's AI tools to do this, and it did a great job, so I felt no need to change it. Here we just did some basic color balance, and here's my lightsaber. I used some effects. I think, I don't remember where I got the elements from, but it's just, again, the same thing as before, a progressive buildup of effects to kind of stack them. So this is just kind of like the base of the lightsaber. I wanted to create more of a powerful conduit of energy than you normally see in the movies. Just again, a little creative license. Lots of lighting effects, glow, etc. And that's the base of the lightsaber. And here we're going to add all of our assets, which is going to take forever to load. But as you can see, we've got a ton. I'm not going to go through all of these because we'll be here all day. But just to give you the basic idea, let's just take a look at this stormtrooper. We have the stormtrooper, and again, I added some motion blur, a little puppet warp to make it look like I was actually lifting him with the force, and adding a little shadow here. The gun that you see flying out of his hand is a separate element. But as you can see, the stormtrooper is actually kind of flat. The lighting doesn't really match, so a lot of this time that I spent in Photoshop was spent getting the lighting right, carving shadows and making it look like he belongs in the scene. So we got to darken him up. We, of course, are adding some blue overlays and highlights to the stormtrooper to make it look like the lightsaber is casting some glow on him. And all of this is going to be punctuated later when we add some more global effects, but this is just kind of like the base of everything going on. And again, I did it the same thing with all of these elements, with the AT-AT, with the robot, more stormtroopers, the TIE fighters, etc. yeah, it took a lot of work. So we're just going to skip that because that's not really the point of this video. And then, we added some fire, some dust, and because these files are massive, it's just taking forever. There we go. Dust, fire, more lightsaber lighting over here. Any day now. There we go. And just a progressive accumulation of lighting effects and colors. I use a lot of solid color layers in different various blend modes, mask them in, various brushes to create dust and grass elements. And yeah, everything is about adding effects that complement the lighting that you see in the scene. And this is a massive file, by the way. This is like 12 gigs, which is why every time I click on something, it's taking a couple of seconds for it to actually do something. I don't normally keep files this big. I usually condense as I go when I know I'm not going to need to revisit something, but I wanted to keep it for the sake of this video. So there you go. So yeah, here I am meditating, minding my own business, Jedi on the run, being hunted, sense a disturbance to the Force, being surrounded by everything around me, lighting shit up, going out with a bang, taking them down with me. And that's the premise of this story. So now is the interesting part. We're going to go into Midjourney and we're going to try to create something like this. And I've been working on this for a couple of weeks now, and obviously, like, I can't get it to look exactly like this. Maybe you can. If you can, I'd love to see it. But I think a better exercise would be to see what I can create in Midjourney, and is it feasible for me to create a concept that could take over production on a photography set, so that, like, essentially make myself irrelevant. Can I make myself irrelevant in Midjourney? Let's find out. So again, we are on Midjourney version 5, and let's see what we come up with. So looking at this, let's start with this one. A Jedi meditating under a Joshua tree at sunset with TIE fighters in the distance. And we want this to be photorealistic, hyper-real, cinematic, award-winning cinematography. And let's see, it was shot on a Fuji, shot on a medium format. And I believe I shot this on a 80mm lens, so a focal length of like 60mm was about it. Golden, warm, gold color palette. And let's wait for it to start. And in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy the scotch. Oh, these kind of suck on the bottom. This one looks ridiculous, but the environment looks really cool. It's actually pretty close to what I had envisioned in tone and in color. Like, this is what I'm going for. I probably maybe could give it more specific instructions regarding the actual subject, because I think only two of them are wearing Jedi robes, and this guy's got like a Mandalorian helmet or something, which is not what we want. But I think out of all of them, the top one probably comes closest in tone and in story and narrative to what we're trying to portray. It's not exactly like it, but it definitely works as a concept art that I could take and shoot. Maybe I can add like haze and glow. Let's see if that adjusts it a little bit. But a Jedi with Jedi robes facing the camera, meditating under a Joshua tree, blah blah. No. All right, this looks pretty cool, actually. These are much, really like these. Obviously, it's missing the TIE fighters, but that's okay, because if I were to ask the AI to create this someday, I might just add the TIE fighters myself in Photoshop once I have this image already recreated. But obviously, it would save me the trouble of driving to Joshua Tree, which is like 2.5 hours away from where I live. The expense, the gas, the time. This pretty much took me a whole day to shoot, like, plus the cost of the props, the costumes. Yeah, and obviously I use myself as talent, which also saved on cost. But if I wanted to hire someone to look much better than I do in these robes, that would be an added expense. I think this one's going to be a little bit tougher because this one depends more on the elements that are front and center. So if it doesn't recreate the TIE fighters and the ships and the starship in the background, the Star Destroyer, I'm going to consider it a failure. Better. And I really like, even though it's got some weird thing going on here that it's got 2 lightsabers lit, I really like that the AI understands, because you see that the lightsabers are kind of keying him here. The AI understands like practical lighting, and that if there is a lightsaber lit, it would stand to reason that the things around it would be affected by that light. So very impressive. I think the one closest to what I had in mind would be a mixture of these two in the top. I like the pose here a lot better, but I like the environment here. And yeah, the sun is kind of like backlighting him. It was backlighting me as well. I think my image was a little bit earlier. Like, this is right when the sun sets. Mine was taken like just before. But I like it. I like the costume a lot. I don't understand what it's trying to do, creating 2 lightsabers here, but with some refinement. But again, there's no Star Destroyer, there's no TIE fighters. Maybe if I am more specific with, let's try this again. Jedi lightsaber with a fleet of starships in the background. And Slave 1. I just changed that one thing. So apparently the word slave is banned in Midjourney. So obviously I don't mean it in a enslaving human kind of way. That's just the name of the ship that Boba Fett flies. But oh god, this guy's holding 3 lightsabers, but he's got 2 arms. This guy looks not like a Jedi. Oh yeah, this is kind of a fail, huh? So I guess I still gotta fleet of starships in the background. So we're gonna change that to spaceships. Spaceships. And I'm gonna take out the word lightsaber altogether so that it doesn't try to light a lightsaber, because it clearly cannot do it right. Whoa, I think this one actually nailed it. Let's... Okay. Better. This is not a spaceship. These are birds. Not very good. This one is not very good. This one's got some promise. But see, the thing here is that these spaceships just look like they were cut and pasted into the image. There's no... I wish I would have done a better job shrouding them in the atmosphere. I guess it did back here. I mean, this is just... I'm not feeling this one, but this one, this bottom 3, yeah, I fuck with that. We can work with that. Some further refinement can probably get the results closer to what we want, but it's in the ballpark. All right, so let's just move on to the final one. A Jedi Knight fighting a battalion of stormtroopers in Joshua Tree at twilight, with spaceships flying, firing lasers, in the distance. Lots of dust, haze, motivated cinematic lighting. And it won't let me use force choke specifically because choke is banned. I've already tried that, but let's see what it comes up with. And then as far as the aesthetics, hyper real 8K. These seem to be working because they do look pretty realistic, relatively speaking. Shot on medium format with a 24mm lens. Warm, cool color harmony with haze and glow. Let's see. Oh, yeah, it's got a stormtrooper holding a lightsaber. All right, this is a non-starter, but again, it's got the environment right. Like, that's the one thing that this is consistently doing right. Like, the actual characters are hit or miss. In this case, it's miss by a mile, wide right. But again, like, the atmosphere, the lighting, the tone, like the look, the aesthetic that I'm going for is there. It understands what I want it to look like, even if it doesn't get the elements correct. Again, this is awesome. Like, you can see this is not what I wanted. It's got stormtroopers firing lasers, and the lasers are actually lighting the foreground. You can see that the shrubs on the ground, there's shadows, there's warm lighting that is motivated by the blasters. So it understands lighting so well. Like, that's the scary part to me. Even though this isn't perfect, it's thinking, and it's it knows what you want, even if it can't always get it there. All right, let's try this. A Jedi Knight with Jedi robes fighting against a battalion. Let's see if it does a better job. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to create an image just like this exactly, but again, the lighting and the colors are really good. The atmosphere is excellent. Like, it understands the aesthetic I'm going for. I told it I want like that glow, that haze, that soft cinematic look, and it's got it. I could probably tell it to add some grain. Actually, just for shits, I'm gonna tell it. I'm gonna get it to do a film emulation. Imagine. I'm not gonna change anything else. I'm just gonna add film grain and shot on Kodak. Portra. Let's do Portra 400. Just for shits. Why not? We're already here. But okay, let's see what we got here. Again, it just doesn't understand what I want in terms of subjects. But look at this. Look at this. This is awesome. I don't know what the fuck it's doing with these random lightsabers that nobody seems to be holding. But look at that lighting. Oh, fuck. That is so nice. Again, it just knows what should be lit. I win, AI loses, but I should be concerned, because if I, as someone who doesn't fully understand how to use this technology just yet, can get these kind of results, I can only imagine what someone who is better skilled at Midjourney, at writing prompts, can get out of this, and can only imagine what we're going to see in versions 6, 7, 8, and so on. So, yeah, not quite what we're looking for, but pretty interesting results nonetheless. All right, that's going to wrap this portion of the video. We're just going to move over to the couch so I can talk about my thoughts on AI in general. I'm gonna need a drink for this. Okay. The idea of AI generated art disgusts me, but the technology fascinates me. And like most of you, I am very interested to see the limits of what this stuff can do, but it scares me a little bit. I know plenty of my clients, and probably some of yours too, are already looking at ways they can cut production costs by implementing AI imagery assets into their marketing plans. And let's face it, we're expensive. So I don't blame them, but at the same time, I kind of resent people for thinking this way, even though I also have to accept that it is inevitable. Just like any new disruptive technology that comes our way, people are going to embrace it and people are going to figure out a way to utilize it, to cut corners, to make their lives easier. And look, I'm no exception. I did it too. This this photo that I just showed you right here, I used AI technology in Photoshop to replace the sky, to make a very tedious task, normally tedious task, simpler. I would argue that I did it within a respectable limit because it didn't do something that I couldn't otherwise do. It just made my life easier for, 20 minutes, so I didn't have to pen tool and blend the sky in. I'm not against using AI, but I have some serious reservations, some serious questions. Some of them are related to the immediate impact on artists, on, the work that we do, the clients that pay us. But there are also some far-reaching philosophical, ethical, legal implications about this technology that are deeply concerning to me and probably well beyond the scope of this video to cover in depth. I'm not an old man yelling at the clouds. Like, I embrace new technology. I accept that things are disruptive. And honestly, art is at its best when it is disruptive. Like, I believe art should either be disruptive or it should hold a mirror to society. It should make you react. It should make you think. And you have photographers like Tim Tatter, for example, who's just completely gone all in, gone ham with AI technology. And the stuff that he's creating with it is probably some of the best I've seen. Like, my results on Midjourney are mixed at best. Some of them are pretty good. Sometimes they're complete trash, if I'm being honest. But he's figured it out. I don't know what his secret to writing prompts is, but he's generating some very interesting things, and he's generating some very interesting conversations in his topics. One question that I think immediately is raised by the AI technology is, does the process matter? Photography used to be like a really technical profession when people shot on film. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize just like how technically involved photography used to be. And it still is to an extent, but it used to be a lot harder. And obviously with the advent of digital, kind of anybody can become a photographer. And that's what happened. Like, Instagram came out, then the iPhone came out, and now everybody's a photographer, everyone's a creative. And AI is just an extension of that. It's making it even easier to create images. And the question then becomes, at what point does the process become insignificant? Without the barrier of the technical difficulties of painting, of photography, etc., then it just becomes about your ideas. And I think that intimidates a lot of people because there are a lot of people, a lot of photographers who are just nerds, who are just very technical and obsess over color science, over highlight roll off, over tones, this. You see it all the time. People like obsess with shooting with film, and they get into it and they speak so poetically and artistically about the process. And then they go and they shoot a picture of a fire hydrant. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I guess the colors are unique, but it's a fire hydrant, or, whatever. And so in a lot of ways, like, that irks me, because I believe that the soul of art is the content is king. Like, the idea, the concept. What are you trying to say? Like, what kind of creative way are you portraying it? How are you lighting it? How does that lighting evoke a certain mood or lend itself to the narrative, complements it? Like, those are the kind of questions that I care about. AI just gets rid of the process altogether. And now if you can type and if you can dream, you can create art. So that begs the question then, in the absence of technical barriers, the ideas can now reign supreme. And does that matter? Like, does it matter how you made it if the idea, if the concept is awesome? So, for example, the Star Wars images that I shot, I drove to Joshua Tree. It's 2.5 hours away. I paid for the costumes. I paid for the lightsabers. Would have done it anyway. Worth it, but froze my nuts off. It was like 32 degrees, and I was wearing that skimpy ass Jedi outfit. I was very uncomfortable. It was exhausting. I was there well after the sunset, and it got even colder, and I had to pack the gear up into the car like with no light. It was, I mean, obviously it's not like suffering like I'm in poverty or something, but you know, I had to work for it. I had to earn those images, and then I had to spend hours in Photoshop creating them, and I suffered some financial losses because the wind knocked down one of my flashes and kind of shattered it. So does that change anything? Like, does that change how you view the images if you were to view them side by side with something created by AI art, and you knew on the one hand that one was created by an algorithm, by a machine, and the other one was created by hand, by a technician, by a human being? Does that make a difference to you? It does to me. It might not make a difference to you, and it probably sure as hell doesn't make a difference to people who are in advertising, marketing, who own brands, who just need content to promote their shit, and they don't care how they get it. And if they can, you know, slash 80% of their budget and get the same results or even better, they probably don't give a shit. And that's understandable. That's capitalism. It's the world we live in. But at the same time, it's so disturbing on so many levels. Not the least of which being that, like, it's my profession, and it's probably many of yours professions, and people are going to lose jobs. Like, let's be real about it. Budgets are going to get smaller, and yeah, there's ways to implement AI into your workflow and to learn how to use it. And maybe that means having a different conversation about whether we're photographers or whether we're image creators or whether we're brand specialists. I don't really know the answer to that. I just know that there is something deeply disturbing, because I do believe that at its core, like, art is like the core of humanity. Like, without art, without like the emotions that it evokes, without the questions that it seeks to answer, without the stories that it aims to tell, like, life is meaningless. I don't know how I would live if I decided one day that my creativity could be outsourced. What would be the point of doing this? What would be the point of life if machines are making art? And I think the other fundamental question to ask is, who really benefits from AI art? Like, we all benefit from the tools. One of the things that Midjourney's been really helpful for me with is creating vision boards and mood boards, and help me conceptualize things to just see how they would look. Even if they're not perfect, I can just kind of get an idea for how it's going to look, if it's worth pursuing, what I would need to do to execute it. So there's a lot of practical uses for this technology that I think could be very beneficial for everyone. But who really benefits at the end of the day from not having to pay artists to create stuff? And that's corporations. Like, that's Walmart, that's Amazon and Apple. Engineers, big tech, those people are so used to training themselves to do anything, to hacking their way through life. And now they're trying to do it with art. Now they're like, well, why can't I write the next great American novel? Or why can't I create a evocative photograph that makes people stop in their tracks? Is that really the way that you want to win? Like, and the other question that I have is pertaining to the limits of this technology, because look, we're all fascinated by it. We want to see if an AI can write a novel, if it can create an entire movie and from scratch, if it can film it. But does that mean we actually want to watch a movie filmed by an AI? Does that mean that we want to actually read a novel written by an AI? Like, isn't something missing from that? Like, isn't writing an extension of the human experience? Where is the humanity in all of this? Is the question I'm asking. And once the novelty of the technology wears off and we see what it can do, are people really going to want to engage with it at the same level as they do with human-made art? And then the follow-up question to that would be, will the value of human art increase as the proliferation of AI-generated content just kind of like takes over all the airwaves and most of the stuff that we see is going to be generated by an AI? Does that make the scrappy surviving human artist that much more valuable? People with disposable income, with taste, with an appetite for purity and creativity, or they might be willing to pay a little bit more for the premium that having a human make something would command, I would imagine. I think so. I think they would. Of course, no conversation about AI would be complete without talking about the legal implications of it. These programs pretty much source the internet for what's already out there. I had a very disturbing realization of this when I was actually using Midjourney to design a tattoo for myself. And I just wanted to get a concept because I cannot draw for shit. And I knew what I wanted, but I'm not going to be able to show someone because I can't draw it, I can't create it. And rather than trying to describe it, I just thought, why not let Midjourney take a crack at it? And the prompt was create a wet plate style portrait of Bob Dylan as the Jack of Hearts. Midjourney actually did a really good job designing this tattoo for me. It actually did exactly what I wanted it to do, but the face was really disturbing. I mean, it looked like Bob Dylan, but upon closer look, and other people pointed this out to me when I shared it on social media, the face was actually Timothy Chalamet. Like, once you looked at it, like it was clear that Midjourney, in its infinite wisdom, took pictures of Timothy Chalamet that probably some other photographer took and put it into my design. And obviously that photographer did not give his consent to have his images used in this design. His images are copyrighted, they're his property. So AI imagery just completely takes a shit on intellectual property rights. And we are all suffering for that. Again, who benefits from that? Who benefits from not having to pay for IP, for not having to pay for licensing for images? Let's see. Big corporations. Do we benefit from that as artists? No. Why are we so quick to just embrace like this invasion of AI content into our lives when the only people who are going to benefit from it, really benefit from it, are people who are already rich as fuck? And we're not going to see a cut of that, ever. So I don't think AI art should move forward. I mean, granted, there's nothing I can do about it. Can't be stopped, but I don't think it should move forward without answering and distilling some of these very serious questions about intellectual property. My very good friend Kate Scott, who is actually creating a lot of interesting conversations on her own channels about ChatGPT and AI technology, she made a very good comparison. I was watching This Is a Robbery, about the 1980s robbery of that museum in Boston, where the thieves essentially just cut out these priceless like Rembrandt paintings directly from their frames, just like priceless works of art worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And they just took a knife and just sliced them out of their frames, and just total disregard for it. And she compared AI imagery to that act. And I thought it was just such a brilliant comparison to evoke what I actually feel inside when I see people trying to pass off AI art as like legitimate art. Because you didn't earn it. Like, if anyone can do it, if anyone can just type something into a computer, then it ceases to be special. Like, what is so special about that? Even if it is technically perfect and beautiful, what is special about something that you didn't do, that you just told the program to create from a bunch of derivative content that other people created? It's going to get to a point where where it's going to be indistinguishable. Like, we're not going to know whether a human made it or whether a machine made it. And that is going to be very, very disturbing for several reasons. If you are an authentic artist, a person creating your own stuff, that means that there's going to be a lot of doubt. You're going to have to prove that you made that stuff, which means if you aren't already documenting your process and your work, you probably should. And photographers and creatives who have already been doing that are going to be at a significant advantage. That is not me. I suck at it. I got to get better at it. That's what I'm trying to do partially with this video. You're not going to know whether this was, unless somebody tells you, unless there's some kind of disclaimer, you're not going to know. And what is that going to do to people, like, psychologically? Like, now this is where we start getting to some, like, really deep, depressing ethical questions about AI, because what happens to the human mind, to the human emotions when we don't know what's real anymore, when we have to doubt every single piece of imagery that comes before us? Like, look at the kind of damage that already happens when, like, especially to, like, teenage girls, right? When they see images of, like, body expectations that have been, like, manipulated to shit in Photoshop with warp tools and liquify and all the makeup and all the retouching, setting impossible beauty standards. Like, look at the kind of damage that's already been documented that does to people. How are people going to be able to cope with the fact that they won't be able to trust anything they see unless there's a disclaimer? What kind of mental health issues is that going to create? And what is this kind of technology going to do to human connection? Art is how we project the unexplainable into the world. It's how we communicate the things deep within us that sometimes there are just no words for. And what's this technology going to do to our ability to form social bonds and to communicate with each other? Which, by the way, we already suck at. The advent of the smartphone and social media has made us pretty bad at communicating with each other. I don't know if you guys have seen one of the latest South Park episodes regarding AI technology. It's called Deep Learning. It's a brilliant episode, and like all things that South Park does well, it takes hyperbole and exaggeration and kind of shows you that it's not so exaggerated after all. And in this particular episode, the boys are using ChatGPT to respond to text messages from their annoying girlfriends, so they don't have to, like, bother to form social bonds with women. And if you've seen the kind of content that is targeted towards men on social media these days, you would know that you pray for, and I'm not a religious person, but I pray for young people and for young women. If this is the type of shit that men are learning, that the kind of men that we're raising to be in this world, like all this Andrew Tate, 10x bro shit that you see on social media, where it's just guys, like, essentially just pissed off because they can't get laid. And now you've got the technology to essentially excuse yourself from having to learn to communicate with anyone. And look, I'm an introverted person. I'm not the best communicator. I sometimes struggle to form social bonds, but I was forced to do it, okay? Like, I had to go out into the world and get better at it. And as a business owner, I have to form relationships with people even when I don't want to. And even though I am not the most social of butterflies, nor am I the most charming or gregarious person, I can function in the world somewhat. And ChatGPT is just gonna, if it's used in certain ways like that, it's gonna really limit the ability of people to form social bonds. Like, could you imagine the kind of growth that you're missing out on as a person if you're relying on this technology to respond to conflict in any way? Like, if you have to write an email to a client that they're not going to be happy with, where you maybe have to disagree with them or push back or stand your ground, or you have to respond to a difficult text message from your girlfriend that would require some kind of emotional intelligence and thinking and a capacity for critical thinking to respond to, but you just go on this AI deep learning app and have it compose a message for you. Like, what kind of cheapening of the human experience are we applauding here? Obviously, this is very exaggerated stuff. Disruptive technology always creates some kind of a shitstorm. But with disruptive technology in the past, there's always been a period of grace for people to adapt, to learn. When we went from horses and buggies to automobiles, internal combustion engines, like there was a period of adjustment. Everybody didn't just get a car the next day. Like it took years for it to become mainstream. You know, same thing when we went from mainly listening to the radio to television, the internet revolution, even smartphones. Like people didn't have iPhones overnight. This is completely different. This is just immediately thrust upon the entire population, and we haven't had the time to really understand what we are dealing with. These are the things that keep me up at night because I don't have a life. And if the last election showed us anything, it's just how easy misinformation can spread. I mean, just look at these fake images right here of Trump getting arrested, right? The artist just put in a simple prompt, and we've got all these images that are fake of Trump being arrested. And the artist even put a disclaimer on his Twitter profile that they were fake, but it got 5 million views and people were spreading them, and people were saying that Donald Trump got arrested. I don't know, maybe he will by the time this video comes out, but as of right now, he hasn't, but a lot of people think he did. And that's just kind of like a microscopic example of just how disturbing and dangerous this kind of technology is. This is why the humanities matter, by the way. The next time someone in Congress or your local representatives want to cut funding to the humanities in schools and just focus on STEM, this is why that shit matters. Because fucking nerds in engineering only focus on how. They never ask whether they should do something or why they should do something. And if more people had a fundamental education in the humanities and history, they would understand the ethical implications and consequences of some of the fucking dumb shit people are going to do with this kind of technology. Rant over on that. I also just don't want to focus on the negative stuff. I know I've been sounding the alarms, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are certain things that AI can't replicate. AI can't replicate experiences, and AI cannot replicate documenting reality. So if you are a wedding photographer, you've got nothing to worry about. Sports photographer, any type of journalism. Even myself, I shoot a lot of architecture for hospitality brands, and those hospitality brands and retail brands are definitely going to fucking replace me the second they can. But architects and developers, people who have to document the things they actually create, not just the things they can actually conceive, and they have to be within the bounds of reality, they're still going to hire me. I'm going to have to adjust my business model, but you know, it's doable. That is my take on AI, on where it's going, on where I think it's going, how I feel about it. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. There's nothing we can do to stop it. It's only going to get better. It's going to get a lot better. It's going to become indistinguishable. But we don't have to accept it as our creative overlord. We can fight back. We can appreciate the things that humans make, even when they're flawed, even when they're not perfect. And I think we would all be the better for it if we maintain that perspective. Anyway, that's it. Here we are. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is obviously a conversation that can go on forever, and I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts. I would love to continue it in the comments. You can follow me on Instagram and have a conversation with me there if you want, if you're so inclined. There's a lot to talk about, and like I said, this is only going to get better. It's going to proliferate more, expand, so there will be more to talk about as time goes on. And I would love to hear everyone's thoughts. Thank you so much, and thanks for tuning in. Peace.